Scotland's losing run against Ireland continues as the Irish boost their chances for the title. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. First up, let me say that this is actually the second time I'm recording this video. Yesterday I did do a version of it, but first of all, it was a rushed job, and I didn't really feel great about it because basically, get home from work. I've watched the first half of the game on the train on the way home, had my notes and stuff, then making notes through the second half, but I went to after the game, or shortly after the game, I went to a family gathering, like a lot of my family that I hadn't seen in a long time, some of them in a few years. So I made it kind of a rush version of this video, and when I came back then to edit it that evening, and got all the editing done and stuff, but I wasn't happy with the quality of it, so I decided, no, I'm not going to put that on the channel. Even though I know from I've been doing this long enough now that I know you have to get your reviews of games up as close to after the final whistle as possible. To get all those big views and wherever. But I wasn't happy with putting a video out there that will get tons of views but wouldn't be up to the standard that I tried to keep. My videos aren't brilliant, but I still have some standards to try and keep. I wasn't happy with it. Decided to scrap it and make another version today. So we just follow the usual format in this one. We'll have a summary of the game, then we'll talk about the stats, and then we'll talk about how I think each team went, and also how I think that's affected their individual championships as well. So first of all, decent start from Ireland in this one, applying a lot of pressure in the opening minutes. They're winning penalties close to the line. They decide then, with penalty advantage, they're going to shift the ball across the front of that Scottish try line. It gets, roundabout in front of the post. Prendergast has the ball. Then just a lovely missed pass from him out to Nash, who's just has a run in the corner to dot down for a try. And really good, it's a difficult pass to give, and especially when you look at how Prendergast performed against England. He certainly wasn't up to the standard that we'd seen from him maybe, at URC and Champions Cup level, and probably felt himself as well, that he hadn't maybe done himself justice. And it would have been kind of understandable as well for maybe the coaches to think, well, let's take him out of the firing line and give Crowley and start instead. But they backed him, and then he, I think his performance here rewarded them for backing him as well. But yeah, lovely pass from him. Nash scores in the corner. Well done to Nash as well. Coming in basically into the starting team because Mac Hansen out with a hamstring injury on Saturday. So with I'm sure he's preparing with the group anyway, but not expecting to be in the 23 at all, and then he comes in as a starter. So well done to him. Prendergast then converts him out wide for 7 points to 0. Scotland then, they're trying to get a foothold in the game, but Ireland are giving them opportunities and they're not really taking it. They're not punishing the Irish errors. So straight after that try at the restart, Ireland go up to try and claim it and they knock it on, but just before they did that, there's a push in the back of Henshaw, and it's a penalty to Ireland. And it was a silly penalty to give away, just throwing away a decent chance to attack. Scrum on the edge of the Irish, 22. With that, back line, 3 distributors in there as well, keeping the Irish guessing, tying up the pack in the scrum as well. Perfect opportunity really for that Scotland team to just reply straight away, get themselves a try back. They're right back in the game and get that crowd going, and then start applying pressure on the Irish and forcing more errors. But it didn't happen for them because somebody just decided they were going to push him, push Henshaw, and give away a stupid penalty. I'm not saying Ireland do the same thing, and I get so frustrated with it. So if you're a Scotland fan and you saw that, I'm sure you felt hugely frustrated with that as well, because every team, it happens to them at times, and and as I said, like, we've done stupid things like that as well. Luckily, though, it wasn't us that did it this time. Then Ireland, they ran about, I think, the 10-meter line or something in the Scottish half. They have a line out. They decide they're going to go over the top to Peter Manny, who's not part of the line out, in midfield, but he drops the ball and knocks on. So it's a scrum to Scotland, but then from the resulting scrum, Ireland get a real good hit and they get a good push on. Scotland going backwards in the scrum, so they have to kind of scramble the ball out. Ireland actually then, instead of it being an attacking platform for Scotland to get into the Irish half and maybe establish some territory, it turns out Ireland turned the ball over and now they're on attack again instead, and again applying that pressure to Scotland. Then not long after that, we have a nice kick from Prendergast over the top of the Scottish defence, and then Nash wins the foot race to the ball. The ball is kind of bobbling as if it's going out, maybe about 5 or 10 meters short of the line, but he controls it off like one thigh into the kind of his knee or his leg or something, and controls it so that it's angled back in field and it's going over the try line, and potentially he's getting there to maybe get it, but he has Van der Merwe beside him and then Tom Jordan inside him, and Van der Merwe then just comes across him and kind of eases him out and knocks him over. So team overview, then they decide that Van der Merwe basically took him out off the ball and he goes to the bin for a yellow card. But crucially, because Tom Jordan was there, it's not a penalty try because it's not probable that Ireland would have scored the try in that case, because maybe he would have got there. And I think that was a fair enough decision with that one. But then Van der Merwe's now in the bin for 10 minutes, so Ireland now playing 15 versus 14 for that time. They kick that penalty to the corner, go to the maul, but then great defence from Scotland, holding them up over the line and getting a dropout from there. Ireland, though, continuing to attack them, but decent Scottish defence. And we have like a big hit from Darcy Graham on Nash, and then Cherry gets over the ball and wins a penalty for them. And that really got the crowd going. And you felt like, maybe if Scotland can survive this yellow card period and start getting into the Irish half of things, they can get themselves back into the game. That's the way I felt at that stage. But Ireland then come back again and, driving at that line again. They go over and it's Doris this time, but again, he's held up, and just, really good defense from Scotland. Not just, not just like stopping the guys, who are just kind of trucking it up, but even when guys are getting over the line, get that body position to get under the ball and make sure there's no chance of getting the ball down. Doing really well at that point. But as well, one of the problems that Scotland had was, even when they got their hands on the ball, like, they'd be looking to kick it clear, and a few times they're getting charged down, and then it's putting pressure back on them again. And I just find it so hard, not just to get out of their own half, but to get any kind of distance away from their own 22, and the pressure is just starting to build on them. Then we have a pivotal point of the game. I don't think it decided the game, but it certainly, I think, made it so that Ireland were more comfortable than maybe they would have been through the game. I think Irish and Scottish fans would agree with this when we talk about the incident. But basically, Lowe is making a break down the left, and he's looking to offload inside to James Gibson Park. He can't find him, but as he's going for the offload, there's a kind of convergence of, it looked like about 3 Scottish players, but the 2 players involved, Darcy Graham and Finn Russell, end up clashing heads, and Darcy Graham is down for a long time. We have a big delay while he's getting treated, and then eventually he gets stretchered off. And since then, found like he's left hospital and stuff. So hopefully, he's going to be good and make a good recovery. Finn Russell off from HIA, which he failed, so he doesn't return to the field either. So like Scotland losing two of their, top performers really, Finn Russell, absolutely fantastic player, really does get that backline going, and everybody knows he can create something out of nothing. Darcy Graham in really good try scoring form, and those dancing feet as well, to be able to just get through in tight spaces too. So those two are off, and then Scotland have a 6-2 split on the bench, so it means that Jamie Dobie has to come on, for Darcy Graham at that stage then. And then it was, I think, Kinghorn then has to go into 10. So, it's not a brilliant, scenario for them at all. Like losing two of your frontline players, they're both off, and you've got to rejig your backline. But also, who was the, trying to think now, who was the other back replacement? It's not coming to my mind now, but basically you got both of your back replacements having to come on, early on in the game, and it means now that there's going to be no fresh legs to come on in the second half for them. But it's a chance you take when you go with a 6-2 split. And I even said it before the game, I hope nothing bad happens in terms of early injuries for them, because I don't want to see something like that happening to them. So that was very unfortunate, I think, for obviously for Scotland, but I think for the game as well, because I think the game would have been closer than it turned out to be, had Graham and Russell stayed on. From there then, Scotland, they get pinged for not rolling away just after we restart the game, and Ireland decide, they've been down in the Scottish 22 for, I think we had like maybe 2 minutes or so left on the yellow card period or something like that, 3 minutes or so maybe. But they hadn't scored anything, so decide we need to take some points. Prendergast slots the penalty for 10 points to 0. Excuse me. Ireland then, Scotland back to 15 at this stage, but Ireland still, applying pressure. They got a scrum about 10 metres out. They decide that they're going to attack off the back of it, and then Doris forces his way over and scores. That's converted by Prendergast as well for 17 points to 0, and it feels like Ireland at this stage in complete control of the game. Scotland, though, they come forward as we approach the break, and they have a couple of chances kicking to the corner. The first one, they kick in, Ireland hold them out to get another penalty. Then they kick to the corner again, and they go to their maul. And normally, like, Scotland's maul is like really efficient, but Ireland manage to make the ball unplayable, and they get the turnover, and it feels like, okay, that's going to be half time. Ireland leading 17-0. Scotland, wondering how they're going to get any kind of score to get themselves back in the game. But Doris goes off the back of the scrum for Ireland. He gets isolated. Scotland get over the ball. They win a penalty. They tap the penalty, and then they shift it from right to left. And really nice passing, across the front of that Irish defence. Hugh Jones with a lovely offload to Van der Merwe, who like acrobatically finishes in the corner. One of those ones where he kind of leaps, up in the air, and he's kind of, if he was on the ground, he's in touch, but he's up in the air, so he's fine. And then just finishes in the corner. Absolutely brilliant from him and from Scotland as well. The conversion is missed, but we're at 17-5. It's half time. Scotland now have something to build on for that second half. Into the second half, then Scotland are the ones who have that momentum at the start. And when Byrne is pinged for not rolling away, Kinghorn makes it 17 points to 8. And then next, Scotland, Ireland are trying to peg them in their own half again, but Henshaw shoots out of the line, and Jones goes through the gap that he leaves, and then they work it out to the wing. Blair Kinghorn, trying to go for the corner, but James Gibson Park gets back with a really good covering tackle there. Scotland recycle. We then have a Timo check. for a possible deliberate knock-on from Henshaw. They deem that it's kind of a natural action when he goes to tackle, and it's a scrum to Scotland. It's one of those ones where I think if you're an Ireland fan, you're probably thinking, yeah, that's fair enough. Like, it's just a knock-on. If you're a Scotland fan, you're absolutely convinced that, there was some kind of deliberate in that maybe it was too wide, in his wrap, and it should have been maybe, certainly a penalty and maybe a yellow card for him. But as I said, it's just given as a scrum to Scotland. Scotland then attack off that scrum, and they win a penalty because Ireland are offside. They decide they're going to take the points. It's right in front, 70 points to 11. And at that stage, you really are feeling like the momentum is with Scotland. But then Ireland, shortly after, they wrest that momentum back off them. Lowe, there's a kick over. Lowe gets to it. The ball's kind of bobbing around or whatever. He collects that ball, gives it to Doris on the wing, and then he gives it to James Gibson Park. Gibson Park chips over Kinghorn, and Kinghorn wins the race back to the ball, but he's right on the line, like just infield, and James Gibson Park comes up, tackles him, gets him over the try line, and then Kinghorn is kind of he hasn't gone to ground yet and grounded the ball. He's looking to see, is there any opportunity? Maybe if we'll offload to someone, they can maybe start a counter attack. We can get the ball out of here somehow. But then he sees that it's too dangerous. Maybe an Irish person is going to get the ball and ground it for a try, so he grounds it himself. 5 metres scrum to Ireland. Ireland then they've got penalty advantage when the ball comes out of the scrum, but they move the ball to the right. We have a good carry from Conan, who's just come onto the field. Scotland, they're keeping Ireland out at that stage, though. Again, really good defence for them, but they have been sucked in on the right side of the pitch. So Ireland go back left, and then James Lowe slips a tackle and then is able to get over the line. Then there's a big fight to get the ball down. He just about gets the ball down. Again, really good defence from Scotland there. It should have been just a try, but they were like, no, you're going to have to absolutely fight to get that ball down, and that's a real credit to them. But Lowe managed to get it down. Prendergast converts. We're at 24 points to 11, and it feels that was a very significant score, because again, if Scotland had scored next, whether it converted to go ahead or not, it was going to be like a 1 point game, or even if it was a penalty, it's a 3 point game. But now, Ireland have a 13 point gap, and then they start kind of, turning it up a bit. James Gibson Park, Ireland penalty advantage. He chips over. Keenan collects it a few metres out. The Scottish defence is there, so Ireland recycle it, and then there's a long pass to Henshaw, and it's another one of those ones where there's space on that width on the right hand side, and he just pops the ball off to Conan, and Henshaw basically collects the last defender that was there. Conan over to score, and that was the bonus point try for Ireland. Conversion is missed. It was a very kickable kick as well. And luckily, like, Scotland didn't come back, at Ireland in any kind of meaningful way, because that would have been one that they might have rued if they did. But it's 29 points to 11. Then Ireland, they win the scrum penalty. They want to make sure that the actual win is safe. So Prendergast does the honours from the tee, 32 points to 11. Then I think it was Jamie Ritchie gets over a ball for Scotland and have a penalty to kick it up the line. And you feel like if they're going to pull it out of the fire, because we've seen Scotland before, especially against England, like that 38-all game where they can score tries and bursts. They're one team that even when they're 20 odd points behind, if there's enough minutes to potentially score enough tries to come back, They're one of the teams that can do that just because of their ability to very quickly score and then back it up with another score and maybe another score after that. But you feel like if they're going to do that, they have to produce something right now. They go to their maul and, it's moving forward, but then Tyg Byrne works his way through the middle and gets onto the ball, just latches onto it like a limpet, and Ireland are able to turn over. Brilliant maul defense from him, and it's, when he's at his best, when he's doing stuff like that. He was a nuisance to break down as well all game. Then we have the scrum. Ireland infringe at the resulting scrum. Scotland decide they're going to tap it. They don't have time, for kicking to the corner or wherever at this stage. They move it left and then back to right. But it's all kind of, they're on the edge of the Ireland 22, and you feel like they need some kind of incision, to get that momentum, get the Irish defence, on the back foot, and then be able to exploit that. Sheehan not rolling away at the breakdown, penalty to Scotland. They now decide they are going to kick it to the corner with about 5 minutes to go. The maul then is going forward. It's one of these ones where, backs have joined in on the Ireland side as well. And things all get twisted around and it goes to ground. But then Ben White comes off the back of it, then he goes over to score. And again, similar to James Lowe, does really well to get the ball down. Lots of fighting, to prevent the grounding, but he did really well to do that. Kinghorn then converts, and it's at 32 points to 18. Scotland then, trying to go from their own 22, potentially, get a bonus point or something. And, one of my favorite moments of the game was Pierre Schumann, just nonchalantly, lovely little dummy, nice feet to go around an Irish guy, and sets kind of a mini break off for Scotland. But then as they go wide, they knock it on. Ireland then, I thought they'd just have the scrum, get the ball out, and get it off the pitch. But they decide they're actually going to attack themselves. But that comes to nothing. So final score full time is 32 points to 18. So let's have a look at the stats from the game. Let me pull it up here. See, I had all this pulled up yesterday. There we go. Okay, so possession first of all. Scotland, bossing possession 57% to 43, but Ireland are one of those teams where they don't have to have the lion's share of possession to beat you, because generally very clinical against England. Not so much, but in this game I think they were fairly clinical in terms of taking the chances that they created. And then territory, 47% for Scotland and 53% for Ireland. So, Ireland playing, much of the game in that Scotland half, and again, pinning the back there and just making it so difficult for Scotland. And then when we look at the kicking later on as well, because Scotland generally, they're one of the longest kickers in the competition. Themselves and France, traditionally, or the last few years at least, have been the longest kickers in the competition. But we saw in the opening game against Italy, they didn't kick that much, they didn't kick that long. And again against Ireland, they didn't kick very long. And I think it's obviously a tactic by them, but I don't think it's a tactic that's really paying off. But we'll see, because these things evolve over time, and it's something new for them, and maybe in the long run it's going to pay dividends. But let's talk about the attack first. We'll talk about kicking in a second. So attacking minutes, 20.3 for Scotland to 15.2 for Ireland. So Scotland with more attacking minutes, but Ireland with more points. So if you look at it, Scotland's 18 points out of 20 minutes. Obviously that's less than a point a minute per attacking minute. Ireland with 38 points from 15 minutes, so over 2 points a minute, so double the return for their attacking minutes to Scotland. And tries scored, 2 for Scotland, 4 for Ireland, so Ireland with the bonus point win. Carries then 130 for Scotland and 80 for Ireland. And metres gained, Scotland 670.9 to Ireland's 458.9. But again, Scotland, that was meters carried. Meters gained 336.8 to 261.3. So you can see on that, Scotland 670 meters with 336 of those being meters gained, means that basically half of the meters that they carried were over the gain line, right, in terms of gains. Whereas Ireland, 458.9 meters carried and 261.3 in gains. So Ireland gaining more in terms of their ratio in terms of that. So theirs was slightly more than half of the meters carried were actually gaining over the gain line. Line breaks then 4 for Scotland, 6 for Ireland. I think this is the telling one of the telling stats, at least from the game. For those 4 line breaks, Scotland beat 25 defenders, and for Ireland's 6 line breaks, they beat just 14 defenders. So Ireland's ability to turn defenders beaten into line breaks was far superior to Scotland's. Part of that will be the scramble defense that we always talk about Ireland, and then kind of not as good scramble defense on the Scotland side, but also it's to do with support lines, decision making, etc. Whether players, when they beat someone, they're going to ground, and even if they're offloading or whatever, is the offload sympathetic? Are they offloading just to move the point of attack, or is there genuine opportunity for a line break there? So a lot of that comes into that there, and looking at it, obviously Ireland did all of those things, or at least most of those things better than Scotland to have such a better conversion rate. Total pass then 185 to 147 in favour of Scotland. Offloads, again, it comes back to that whole defenders beaten to line breaks. 9 offloads from Scotland, but they obviously weren't leading to many line breaks, and just 2 from Ireland. One offload from Scotland, which was very special, was the Hugh Jones ones to Van der Merwe, who scored the first try in the corner. So that was certainly an offload that had an impact on the game. Handling errors then 23 for Scotland and 14 for Ireland. So we saw Ireland struggling with their own handling errors against England, especially kind of in the first half. But in this one, it was Scotland that were making most of the errors. Turnovers conceded then 16 by Scotland and 13 by Ireland. Okay, now let's come on to kicking, because again, this is another very interesting one. Scotland kicks and play just 18 kicks. And to put that in perspective, like last year in this tournament, I did the stats and stuff, and Scotland regularly high 20s to into 30s for kicks. So almost half what last year they were doing in terms of kicks and play. And Ireland 24, which is lower than, I think last week it was like 26 or 28 or something against England, something around there, but not as big a drop compared to what we expect from Scotland. And then the big one, I think, is the kicking meters as well. So Scotland kicking meters 348.6, which from 18 kicks means it's less than 20 meters a kick. That's somewhere around maybe, I don't know, like just eyeballing maybe 17 meters per kick, something like that. And then Ireland, 24 kicks from them for 747.5 meters. And again, eyeballing it, that's somewhere around like 30 meters a kick or so. When you think 25 meters for 750 would be like bang on 30. So they're probably going to be slightly above the 30 mark, 30 point something, I'd imagine. Then no 50-22s from either team, but then you can see what I'm talking about in terms of the kick distance. When we look at long kicks, just 5 from Scotland and 12 from Ireland. And then short tactical kicks, 13 from Scotland and 12 from Ireland. So both teams trying those short tactical kicks, but Scotland's kicking less, but the times when they decided they weren't going to kick was like long kicks, right? They weren't doing the long kicks that they were doing last year. And the reason why they're like teams like Scotland and France especially, and Ireland to an extent, kick long, is because what you want to do is you want to move the guys like the back three around to the point where you've created space somewhere on the field that once they kick return to you, if you get it in a favorable position and you've got support, you can then attack down, whether it's up the middle or whether it's on either flank. You've created, an opportunity to have a mismatch on most probably on one of the wings, right? That's why teams are kicking like that, and that's why Scotland were doing it last year as well, and they're one of the best in the tournament at doing it as well. So for me, I'm not understanding the change in tactics, but again, over time, as they evolve those tactics, we might see why they're doing that, why they're going for more short tackle kicks as a percentage of their overall kicks. Obviously, against Ireland, we've seen teams before putting those balls in between the space of that aggressive Irish defence, and then the back three or the back two, depending on what way they've lined up, who are sitting further back. There's space in there that if you get it right, you can put it over there. Somebody like Hugh Jones coming through, gets that ball, wins it, and collects, maybe Hugo Keener or someone in the tackle, and then just gives a nice little pop off to the likes of Tom Jordan, let's say, coming on a support line, and he's under the post. Like, I'm sure that's the type of thing they were thinking of, and we saw them kind of try it a couple of times as well in the game. But trying that is fine, but also for me, you've got to keep those long kicks as well in your game, because otherwise, the likes of Keenan, or if it's Nash or Lowe or wherever, will notice that you're not kicking as long as much. And they'll steal a few meters kind of closer to that, to the Irish, defensive line. And then that space that you're looking to exploit, is going to get smaller. And I think that's what we saw in this game as well. Ireland, winning the kicking duel in the game, but also what it talks to, or what it kind of points to, is that Ireland, kicked 7 more long kicks than Scotland did. Part of that would be that some of the Irish kicks, they were kicking off the field, into the crowd, and then the chase was basically there to stop Scotland from going quickly from the line out or wherever. But also, it also speaks to the fact that when Ireland were kicking it long, Scotland were running it back, and maybe the fact that, again, we saw defenders beaten much more on the Scottish side, which again speaks to that Scotland would have been maybe beating the first guy up. We saw a couple of times, someone would catch a ball, they beat the first Irish shooter that was coming up to try and put pressure on them as they're running out. But then even if they beat one more, they still get stopped before they actually break the Irish, line, the rest of the Irish line that's coming up, and there's no line break there. So for, when you look at the game, that's the part of the game, I think, that Scotland had changed, and it didn't really work out for them in this one. Now we're going to talk about defence then. So tackles made, 99 for Scotland and 164 for Ireland. And fair play to Scotland, because Ireland generally don't make that many tackles in a game, because they, when they can, Ireland will keep hold of the ball. They go through phases. They make you do the tackling. But Scotland were doing it to Ireland. But again, the thing is, you've got to make them make those tackles, but then you got to draw them in, and then wherever the space is, generally against Ireland, it's going to be on the wings. You have to be able to get the ball out there quickly and then get your line breaks, and Scotland weren't able to do that. Tackles missed, then 14 for Scotland, 25 for Ireland, and tackles percentage, 87.61 for Scotland is decent. 86.77 for Ireland is actually really good, because Ireland, we saw against England, they were down, I think, around kind of 82%, which is generally where you expect Ireland to be. They're normally like about 5 percentage points or so behind their opposition, simply because we saw it with Henshaw shooting at the line. They do go with a lot of shooters, which has that risk of missing tackles. And then they rely as well on a scramble there as well behind them. So the fact that they were making almost an identical, percentage of the tackles as Scotland meant that they didn't have to rely so much on the scramble there as well. And again, it speaks to the fact that Scotland found it very difficult to break the line. Okay, so next one then we're going to talk about discipline. So penalties conceded 9 for Scotland, which is good. Excuse me, because I always talk about team, they want to aim first of all single figures for penalties, and then as low single figures as possible and lower than the opposition. And it did that because Ireland conceded 11 penalties in the game. But neither team had kind of too many periods where there were a lot of penalties given one after the other. It kind of was swinging back and forth at times. Free kick conceded then 1 each. I'm pretty sure both of those. Definitely one of them was at the scrums. I think both were at the scrums. I've got a fuzzy memory of maybe one was at a line out, but I'm not sure. Maybe not. The gap was wrong or something, but I'm not sure. I might have just invented that, like my old man brain. But I think probably both came from scrums. Offensive penalties conceded then 5 for Scotland, 3 for Ireland. Defensive penalties 4 for Scotland and 8 for Ireland. And then that one yellow card that we talked about for Duhan van der Merwe. Again, I don't think penalties had a big impact on the game overall. It obviously gave opportunities to both teams in terms of getting platforms to potentially score. But again, a lot of them went with momentum. There were very few penalties that kind of flipped momentum, and those that did were generally some really good jackling by the likes of Darge or Byrne or whoever. So on to breakdown then. So Rucks won 103 for Scotland and 65 for Ireland. And Rucks lost 4 for Scotland and 5 for Ireland. And then we come on to Ruck speed. So, and again, this is kind of telling in terms of how the two teams performed in their attack. So 0 to 3 seconds, which is like fast ball, which is what you want. Scotland 63.54, Ireland 62.3. Scotland just about shading that. But still, again, finding it difficult to actually break that Irish line when they had that quick speed. And excuse me, part of that is obviously going to be the disruption from losing 2 of the frontline players with that clash of heads. But also, you give credit to the Irish defence, but a lack of cutting edge as well on Scotland's side in terms of really stretching that Ireland defence and having your dummy runner, having a big ball carrier, but then also having another option to go through the gap that's actually created there. Ireland were very good at sealing those gaps when they appeared. Then 4 to 6 seconds, medium ball, 33.96 for Scotland and 26.23 for Ireland. And then slow ball, 6+ seconds, 12.5% to 11.48. So Scotland having more quick ball slightly, but also slightly more slow ball in the game as well. Breakdown steals, 6 to 5. Both teams, as I said, super competitive at the breakdown there. And, you would expect that. You look at the lineups of those two teams, and the fact that Peter O'Mahony came in for Ireland as well. There's just lots of breakdown animals in there as well. Mauls won then 3 for Scotland, 1 for Ireland. And Mauls lost 2 each. That was when they were held up either short of the line or over the line for both teams. Then set piece, scrums won 5 for Scotland, 8 for Ireland. Scrums lost 1 each. But Ireland definitely had the advantage in the scrum. Line out went better for Scotland. 13 lineouts won and 1 loss to Ireland's 6 won and 4 loss. So Ireland nowhere near the perfect line out that they had against England, but also nowhere near the disaster of a line out that they had in November as well. It wasn't like a big factor for them. Line out steals then 1 each. in the game as well. Then kicks at goal. So successful penalty kicks, 2 each from that. Successful conversions, 1 for Scotland, 3 for Ireland, and 1 missed conversion each as well. So, kicking didn't have a huge factor on the game. It wasn't close enough really for that to come into the equation. Okay, so let's talk about the teams. We'll start with the home team, Scotland. I felt like, they struggled early on, especially to create any opportunities. They did well, taking the opportunity just before half time. And they did have, that early momentum in the second half, but they couldn't capitalize on that. They got back within 7 points, but they didn't have that extra gear after that then to go again and really ratchet things up against Ireland. Ireland, as I said, just wrestled momentum back off them, and it was them that went through the gears until they had the victory secured. And, Ireland is so good at that. And I talk about it all the time. 40 to 60 minutes is where Ireland would beat a lot of teams. They go up through the pressure, and it was good from a Scottish point of view that they were the one in the early minutes of the half scoring those points and actually reeling the Irish in, but they couldn't keep it going for the whole of that third quarter. And then Ireland got a couple of their scores during that period to then to win that period and set themselves up then to seal the victory then. As we came into the final 20 minutes of the game, which is normally where Ireland aren't the biggest scorers in the last 20 minutes of the game, but if they have the game won, generally there's no danger to them. We saw the same thing against England. Have the game won, last kind of 10 minutes or so, they let in a couple of tries. Against Scotland, they have the game won. They let in a try, in the last 10 minutes as well. It's something that I'm sure the coaches are trying to, get in their heads that you've got to keep that concentration up for those last 10 minutes, because there will come a game, maybe against France, where it's close, and keeping the opposition out in those last 10 minutes could be the difference between winning and losing. But for Scotland then, as I said, their attack really lacked cutting edge, which is, for whatever reason against Ireland, it happens to them a lot. Whereas in other games, we see that flowing rugby from Scotland, able to, create space and move the ball quickly, lovely hands, great interplay, everyone, timing of the runs, dummy runs, committing defenders, etc., exploiting gaps. When they get in behind, then being able to finish off. We didn't really see any of that today, other than a couple of really special moments from them. And that's something to definitely have to work on. What is going on against Ireland that they're not able to do what to do, because they can do it against France. We've seen them do it against France so many times. They can do it against England, even when England are playing well. Also, so. It's something against Ireland that they got to figure out. And as an Ireland fan, there's part of me that hopes they do it because I want to see them do well, but there's also part of me, obviously, that hopes they don't figure it out, because I want Ireland to do well every time they play. So it's nothing against Scotland. It's just, it's just I'd rather my own team keep winning, and if we have a little bit of an edge at the moment, hopefully you can keep hold that edge for a while. But line out for Scotland certainly better than Ireland, but again, not as good as a platform as an early is for Scotland. For me, Scotland generally have the best line out in this competition, over the last few years at least, and it's normally a good platform for them, but they couldn't really get it going. And then the other set piece then, scrum, really under pressure from them. And because of that, then they found it very difficult to go forward ball off those scrums. Often, scrum would go backwards. They have to scramble the ball out. And then whoever is getting like the pass off the scrum, or the next pass after that is getting an Irish guy smashing them backwards. So that was very difficult for them to manage during the game. But positives, dealt with the yellow card period very well. Their maul defense, I thought was excellent in the game. Um, you know, one thing that we talked about already was losing Russell and Graham was a massive blow to them. Again, I don't think it decided the game. I think it maybe decided that, had an effect on the margin, but not on the winner of the game. As I said, still have a mental block against Ireland for whatever reason. But next week now is England in 2 weeks' time. And, the whole, I think, approach to that England game now must change, I think, after this, because start of the Six Nations, you would have looked at Scotland's fixtures and think, okay, gonna be Italy first up, then give it a go against Ireland, maybe a decent performance. They're gonna beat England, and they should beat Wales because Wales have been absolutely dire, and they've performed really well in Paris. Scotland have a decent shot at this title this year. But now, after this performance and England's performance against France, now suddenly this, the next game against England is a must win for Scotland. And even though they have that, I think, have they beaten them 4 or 5 years in a row or something, the Calcutta Cup, but suddenly now England are coming into that with confidence. Scotland will have that kind of in the bank confidence of having beaten them before, but it's different to having that buzz of maybe, finally beating the Irish and thinking, okay, we're on for, a potential triple crown here, possibly a Grand Slam, definitely in with a shout for the title. Instead, now it's like, if we don't beat England, this is actually going to be a poor Six Nations for us, because let's say the scenario that they only beat Italy and Wales, and they don't perform against France in the final game and lose that one. Then you look at that and you think the players that they have and the fact that Glasgow have been doing so well, that would be a poor Six Nations for Scotland. And then that puts more pressure now on the result of this England game. And for whatever reason, the Scottish team at times, when pressure like that comes on, they kind of go into their shell and they don't perform. I hope I'm wrong about that. I'm hoping for Scotland to do well against England because, it's not, I know you're looking at an Irish guy. He's talking about Scotland against England. He doesn't like England, blah, blah, blah. For me, that's not true. When I was younger, it probably would have been true, honestly. And then I kind of grew up and realized, why am I disliking them just because they're English? It doesn't make sense. But the reason why I would support Scotland in that game is very simple. Scottish players play in the URC. I'm far more familiar with them than the English players. Same against the French as well. I'll cheer for, Wales against France, even though I know, as it happened, Wales got absolutely destroyed by them. And the same with Italy. I'll cheer, Italy against England or France simply because they're URC. And then if ever South Africa come into the competition, it'd be the same thing there as well. Like, I'd always cheer for the URC teams and players first, and then after that, then honestly, like England against France, I was cheering for England because again, with that, like I'm kind of some of the English players, I'm kind of more familiar with because I don't watch any top 14. I see the odd game like in the Premiership and stuff and highlights and things like that. I don't see very much of the top 14. I only really see those teams in the Champions Cup. I enjoy watching the French teams in the Champions Cup, but again, I'd be more familiar with the English players, so therefore they're the players that I'd be cheering on. And this kind of squad of English players doesn't have kind of like the likes of Dylan Hartley and stuff. Players that I really didn't like just as people, or like even Joe Marler. I know some people love that guy, but for me, he was hard to stomach. But there's nobody that I would dislike in the England team. And then, like, as well, even when Owen Farrell was there, I know a lot of people don't like him. Like, for me, I think he got a terrible life, and it wasn't kind of fair on the guy either. But yeah, that's kind of my hierarchy of teams. If I was cheering, like, it'd be Ireland, then Scotland, then Italy, Wales, England, and then France would be my kind of tier in terms of cheering for teams. But yeah, I think, as I said, it feels like a must win, must produce performance in that game now for Scotland. On to Ireland then. Went about their task in this game with great efficiency, I felt. Certainly the more clinical of the two sides. You can see that in terms of just the return on their attacking minutes. Prendergast, look, far more composed this week compared to England. James Gibson-Park, excellent beside him as well. Tyg Byrne, absolutely immense. Peter O'Mahony, came from outside of the 23 into a certain team and so influential as well. Line out, again, not as good as it was last week, but not as bad as the Autumn Internationals. Scrum went well. Good to see Clarkson, performing off the bench there. Nash, such a late replacement, going well too. Lowe, I think, showed his class in this game as well. And then, Doris, such a leader as well in that pack. James Ryan, I think quietly went away around his game and, was, and that's something he does so often is, he does all the kind of unseen grunt work, and he does it so well too. I think he's maybe doesn't get the credit, that he should get at times, just because he doesn't do a lot of flash stuff, but what he does really well. A lot of good performances on the Irish side there. Now, kind of strange, like, first of all, well, not strange in this one, like, Ireland, the only team now that can possibly win a Grand Slam. Doesn't mean they're going to win it, because, it doesn't matter how badly, let's say even Wales next up, right? Doesn't matter how badly Wales have played in their opening two games. If they get a start and they get a bit of momentum in that game against Ireland, you can't just completely rule out and say there's zero chance of Wales beating Ireland. There's always a chance, even if it's a very slim chance. There's always a chance. You need to respect your opposition, and you need to prepare for it properly. And sure, Ireland will do that. But at the same time, no matter how much the Irish players will talk about how we're taking it one game at a time and etc., there will be parts of their brain, and me as a fan as well, I'd be guilty of the same thing, will be thinking, okay, well, Wales is a win. And whether it's right or wrong, right, that would be part of their brain. And then they might have the thought, and then something in their brain go, well, no, that's not true. We need to prepare properly. But there could be, little bits like that going on, and suddenly Wales surprise them, right? But whether it's going to be Wales or, that game against France seems huge now at the moment. If you are assuming that Ireland are going to beat Wales, let's say we give you that one, right? Oh, Ireland are going to beat Wales, whatever. But that France then coming to Dublin, knowing that they need to win to resurrect their title chances. They love coming to Dublin and spoiling the party as well. That then becomes a massive, massive game for Ireland. So Grand Slam possibility there, but certainly there's a lot of hard work to go into that. And that's not even talking about having to go to Rome against an Italy side who possibly will be looking for another win to add to that one they got against Wales, and possibly might pick one up in the intervening rounds as well, and looking for maybe their best finishing the championship as well. So three games potentially that Ireland can lose. I don't care about what the odds are or whatever. If you have 15 guys going against 15 and you have your whatever, your subs or whatever, until that game is done, you can't count it as one. And that's, I think, what Ireland's attitude has to be. And I think, as fans as well, we have to show that respect to the likes of Wales or whoever, because especially, I think for me, as I said, I came late to rugby. In terms of like my youth, I didn't play rugby as a kid or anything like that. It's kind of in my 20s when I kind of really started getting into rugby, going to games, as a Leinster season ticket holder, etc. But around that time, Ireland weren't anywhere near one of the best teams in the world. Wales were coming into their pomp, and certainly much better than Ireland. And there was a lot of games where Wales just showed us up as well. But during that period, even though Ireland weren't brilliant, we were still able to, produce the odd, shock result, beat Wales or, beat France, beat England, etc. We were kind of, we were a team that would have to kind of get motivated for a game. So we'd have to have a bad result, and then that gets everybody riled up. And then we produce a performance against England or Wales or whoever, and we get a win. And then after that, then, we lose again, and we're kind of up and down. But what I'm getting at is Wales could absolutely do that to Ireland, and we have to pay them that respect, because any team that's in this competition, until that game is done and dusted, you cannot guarantee 100% that a team is going to win. And what I'd say to anyone who says that it's absolutely sure that Ireland are going to win, well, I'd say then take, sell your house, take all of your life savings, put on an Ireland win, and if you're that confident of it, and I think for most people, most sane people at least, would think maybe like that, even that little inkling of a possibility of Wales winning is enough to kind of stop you and say, no, I'm not going to do that. But the other thing I was talking about was there's another strange kind of twist, or foible, I guess, of the fixtures, which is that now the only teams who can possibly win a Triple Crown this year are Ireland and Wales. Wales simply because they started against France and Italy, so they haven't played any of the other Triple Crown contenders. And Ireland because they've played the other two Triple Crown contenders and beat them. And if they beat Wales, they claim a Triple Crown. And I remember, again, although I came to it late, I'm still a rugby fan for a long time. And I remember when for Ireland, the Triple Crown was the same as winning, winning the championship or winning Grand Slam, because we didn't win championships or Grand Slams back then. So getting a Triple Crown was like an absolutely amazing feat. And, if you live long enough and are a rugby fan for long enough, you know that the good times only last for so long. So if we can get a Triple Crown, that on itself would be something amazing, even if we miss out on the title this year. But that's the end of this one. I think I've prattled on for long enough now. Let me know what you think down in the comments.